And now,
it's 10 a.m.
Let's just get down to it.
And it's time for your sports fix.
Strap yourselves in, folks.
From two guys who have covered the teams you're passionate about for years.
We are professionals.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott is out today. I guess it's a Cyber Monday thing. He's trying to get all the good deals.
It is Cyber Monday.
So he had to stay home so he can search Amazon to make sure Jake got all the good deals because he hates to miss out on a good deal. So he's going to need a recovery day tomorrow, so we'll have Jake back coming up on Wednesday. But that familiar laugh is, of course, Mr. Patrick Kinahan sitting in for this first segment. What's up, PK?
Well, man, this is a great time of year for our business, and any time is a great year, or any whatever I'm trying to say, you get the point. That so much is happening here. Seasons converge, the coaching carousel in college football. You know, it is so crazy, Ben. College football has so many things wrong with it, but yet it flourishes at almost like the highest levels that the sport could possibly flourish at. It's like we can't get in the way of all the things that screw the game up.
It's almost like a fungus. The worse the conditions are, the better it grows. You know, the worse things are, it seemingly, like you said, flourishes and gets bigger and bigger. And all these somewhat perceived, and I think this is an interesting point because this is how I have felt about BYU, unfortunately, for the last really couple of weeks. Now this week, and added on with the Kalani Sitake stuff, which is what we're going to talk about. But this should ideally be like the celebration.
Right.
This should be the most joyous time, and not just for BYU, but for all of college football.
Right.
And it's just drama. It's just one day after another of the Lane Kiffin saga, and that opens up this job, and then who goes where. And
it's junior high relationships.
You're exactly right. This should be the time of your life because you're 16 and you have your first car, and it's like, no, you're actually there's infighting with all of your friends constantly.
Yeah, and it's crazy that every year we should be talking about what does BYU need to do, A, to beat Texas Tech, B, what do they need to do in that game to be in the playoff. And it's like that's secondary, and that sucks, but you have to go with the news judgment being the bigger stories as they are, and that's what we're left here. And the Lane Kiffin thing, didn't that seem like a month? And it's like, and we knew he was going to take it. LSU, come on. I mean, there's just so many. I covered a game, Utah State. It was the Saturday before 9/11, and I covered a game there. And I had gotten down there. The newspaper had sent me to the Bees. They may have been called the Buzz. They were going to play the New Orleans team in the playoff. So I made my reservation like on the Tuesday before the Saturday game, and something happened. The Bees gagged at the end. They don't go. And the newspaper says, well, it costs too much to change it. Can you still go? So I'm down there on Tuesday for a game that's on Saturday. I was going nuts, but I got a real good flavor for the Baton Rouge community and how passionate it is for football. And the tailgating started to begin on Wednesday.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's one of the jobs.
Yeah.
It's one of the jobs. You have to take it if you're Lane Kiffin. I don't blame him at all for doing that. And that's, the question about Penn State. Is Penn State one of the jobs you have to take when it opens up? And before we even get into that, I think your point is interesting about, we should be talking about what does BYU have to do to get into the college football playoff. I even hate that. That's what I hate. BYU is in the best spot they have been in how long? You tell me honestly. When was BYU last in a better position than they are today? When were they last playing a bigger game than this?
Oh,
was it
man,
the Cotton Bowl?
maybe I was going to go 96. Yeah.
So we're talking about 30 years. We're talking about longer than Christian's been alive. Our producer.
I like to bring that up about him.
This is the biggest BYU game of Christian's life. And you're right. The fungus that is college football is that all we're worrying about is, what a lousy season if they don't beat Texas Tech. You know, what a disappointment, how rotten it is and how much they've been cheated. I really dislike that about college football, but it is the talking point, and it's not just fodder. It is the system. It is what the system has created and been designed to do to create this type of conversation.
Yeah, and Saban went off and defended Kiffin, and then there was thought, Saban's got the same agent as Kiffin does, blah, blah, blah. You got all that. I mean, everyone brings biases to whatever we do. We like to say we're not. You try to minimize those biases as much as possible, but we've all got them. We're all human. And that's what we are talking about. And I heard last week that there was at least some form of mutual interest. I think it was like Wednesday. But I thought, well, maybe it's more Penn State interest because they've got to check out who the hot coaches are. Because that's another thing, too. You've got to get the splash.
You got to get the name.
You can't just get somebody who is going to be really good and who's going to work his butt off to make the job be what it is and have all sorts of success. But who knows? Who knows who's good, who isn't? Kurt Signetti, Who? What? 63 years old? Come on, man. And look at him. He's taking a basketball school to, at least in my lifetime, and I'm 5 times older than Christian. I don't even know how to pronounce his last name, so I don't even say it. I mean, I'm way older than him. I mean, I'm like his grandfather age.
He says that about you.
Yeah, that's why I like to make fun of him. He texted me the other day, the last Utah home game. Are you going to get sound? You going to send us sound for a Utah game? I texted back, are you ugly? I mean, come on. You got to ask me if I'm going to. I don't ask him, are you going to produce the show today? But he does that every time. It bugs the crap out of me, these kids. I show up, man. Come on. So you got all these things going on. And Signetti at a basketball school. Bob Knight throwing chairs. Step aside, Bob Knight. We got Kurt Signetti now. Yep. And he's not a Looney Tune like you are or were. Obviously, he's deceased. And so who knew that was going to be the transformational hire of all hires?
Yeah. Certainly nobody. It's truthfully nobody.
Indiana?
Right. The number 2 seed in the country.
Undefeated?
Already locked up a playoff team.
Yeah.
Has a real chance to beat Ohio State in the Big Ten
title
game. So it's fascinating. What is interesting to me, and maybe you can explain this to me. Why is Kalani not a splashy name? Why is he getting this label of not being one of the hot names in college football compared to the Signettis of the world? He's relatively young. He's only 50 years old, so ideally there's plenty of runway there. But he's not a one-hit wonder. He's not a flash in the pan. And he brings a program that's built on real things, just defense, running the ball. They've developed NFL quarterbacks. Conceptually, I think he brings a incoming sophomore quarterback with him, brings a good offensive coordinator with him. I don't know why Kalani doesn't get more of that splashy name tag.
I think it might be the ghost of Lavelle Edwards. Lavelle Edwards, what was it, 80, I don't know, 83, 84? Was it maybe the 84 season? Mm-hmm. Obviously, they went undefeated that year. But he was this close to taking the Detroit Lions job, which actually went to Darryl Rogers, who was the Arizona State coach at the time. And he went there and coached the Lions. And I've heard recruiters tell me this over the years, that they're hesitant, and it's changed, I'm sure, to a degree, but they're hesitant to spend a lot of time and money on recruiting Latter-day Saint kids who are being offered by BYU. Because there's this pull there, not for all of them, certainly not for all of them, but for a lot of them, there's a pull there. That's my church school. And many of them, that's where my parents met. We all know the stories of you meet your spouse at college, blah, blah, blah. And so in the end, that's where they're happiest. And for a lot, that's been the case, right? And so you have Kalani Sitake makes no bones, as he should, because it ingratiates him, plus it's real, that he is a clone of Lavelle Edwards. He has his own style.
Of course.
I mean, Lavelle Edwards are going to be dancing along these south sidelines as he enters the stadium and goes into the locker room, but that's who Kalani is, and so be who you are. And so the thought being that, hey, this is a kid who played there to an extent, grew up beforehand, often talks about his BYU fandom. The family is all there, blah, blah, blah. And so does he really want to uproot himself from that situation to go on the other side of the country or wherever it might be?
Yeah.
I always thought that Harlan jumped the gun on that, but I always thought he would be an ideal candidate for Utah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's not a big move. And at the time, I think that's fleshed out because they were independent and Utah wasn't.
Right.
And we didn't know, eventually we know what's happening now. And now the programs, I think, have been brought back.
Well, for a while, Utah was a better job, and I don't think you can make that argument anymore.
Dominant over BYU.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now it's leveled out with BYU being in the conference. So I think there might be some there as far as that goes. And you'd have to ask Kalani and his agent, how much have they pushed it? Whittingham, he's turned down jobs. He's talked about that. But people knew, and I stood on Little League football sidelines with Kyle 25 years ago, that one of the things
Were you coaching him, or what was going on?
I wasn't coaching him about football. Yeah. Might be some other stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
Tone it down a little bit.
Okay.
and the guy has progressed to the level that has been remarkable. He's got everybody in the palm of his hands.
Yeah.
But one of the things that he is most proud about, the wins and the money, they're great, no doubt about it. But he loves to tell you that his children all went to the same elementary school, junior high, and high school. They had a normal life as if he were a school teacher and a high school coach. They didn't have to move around as we see these coaches do, right? And so I think that is impeded. Whereas Majerus, you were probably too young, but you certainly know of it. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry who had an opening, sure.
Yeah, listen. Yeah, right.
Because what was he going to do? Sit in the hotel room by himself?
Yeah, right. No big deal. Whatever.
Right. So he entertained everything. And I had recruits, more than one, who went to the NBA tell me, because I was a beat writer for the newspaper at the time, tell me, I would love to come there, but I don't know that he's going to be there. And these are kids that literally played in the NBA. And I can tell you their names later. And you would know them. I'm sure. There's no question you would know them. And so that hampered the recruiting a little bit, because do I want to go there? And in those days, you couldn't just transfer and be eligible immediately, right? You had to sit out. And if you'd already redshirted, that you lose a year. And they were pretty tight about that stuff. So I think that with Kalani, and that there's a lot of that same type of character. And if you look at, Kyle will tell you his mentors, his number one is his father, Big Fred, and Lavelle Edwards, Ron McBride, Urban Meyer. Okay, well, Kalani, clearly Lavelle Edwards, clearly Ron McBride, clearly Kyle Whittingham. So they're kind of cut from the same mold. So I think that limits his attractive ability. But if Penn State wants to lure him and he decides to go, I'm going to be a Penn State fan.
I'm with you. I'm a Kalani fan, so it will be easy to root for him wherever he goes, even though historically I've not really been much of a Penn State fan. But I think with the changing landscape of college football and what actually matters now, which is the NIL money, the money you can pay, how you can support your assistant coaches. Yeah. I don't know how much he learned from Witt, or he learned from Lavelle, or he learned from Ronnie McBride, how applicable those are. It's certainly in your spirit.
I think your foundation is built on that.
It is. But everything else around you has changed. And I do think the best coaches, and I think Kalani is a hell of a coach. I think Kalani's a really, really high-level coach.
You're going 22-3.
Yeah, you obviously know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Those guys can win. Those guys win wherever they go. I think what I don't like about this whole conversation is this idea that Kalani can only win because he can only recruit LDS kids, which is so clearly not the case. Or he can only recruit Polynesian players, which is so clearly not the case either. Kalani's just a winner. I think Kalani's going to win wherever he coaches, which is why it would be such a massive loss for BYU if he were to leave. But I'm not sure it applies to him the way it may some other coach that we've talked about. And even then, look at the coaches at BYU in recent history. Mark Pope left and is having success at Kentucky, and Bronco left and had success at Virginia. He's also seen those guys leave and do more, and recognizes, I think, that you don't have to stay at BYU if you want to try to fight for something, maybe not bigger, but something different. And I wouldn't criticize him if he thought you have a bigger opportunity to win at Penn State than you do BYU.
Yeah, and he put in 10 years. 10 years is a long time, for sure, if you're at a place. He would be greatly missed because you lose one of your own. And when you have one of your own, it means more because it means more to them. Like I'm an ASU guy, everybody knows that, and Dillingham's an ASU guy. And I've watched them for 40 years hire these outsiders. And it's like, well, if you have success, you're going to go on to another job. And if you don't, you're going to get fired anyway.
Yep.
And maybe Dillingham fools us all. And in 2 or 3 years after he's built up a little bit of a run, maybe he takes off to Georgia or wherever. You never know. Florida State, where he actually did coach. But you got one of your own, and when he says this place means something to me, it's not, because of the paycheck. It runs deeper. And the fans, it runs extremely deep. You know this as well as anybody covering the Jazz. These fans, and they're going through so much struggle now as the team repeatedly loses and arguably played the worst game that they've played yesterday since the masterpiece of Dog Bleep, which I think was against Houston also, wasn't it?
I think it was Dallas.
Was it Dallas?
But, yeah,
down in Texas. Yeah. Okay. So
that was a masterpiece of dog shit.
Yeah, and you are interacting with them much more than I am as far as how much it's just I don't want to say killing them. That's strong.
It's painful.
But how much it bothers them that this team sucks after 20 years of high quality, and more than that, because obviously Quinn Snyder had a couple of good teams there, and so now they don't. And with that in mind, the fan of BYU doesn't draw the paycheck. He and she, they draw the allegiance. And to have one of your own say, I think I got a better situation over there, I think that becomes, even though they can hire Jay Hill, and I think Jay Hill will do a masterful job, that becomes Brian Santiago's first crisis.
I do think the Jay Hill
maybe the Retzlaff was
net, one. Retzlaff was certainly a big one. The Jay Hill safety net plays an interesting part in this as well. Should note quickly, John Bryce, who writes for footballscoop.com, which generally does a very good job of breaking some of these stories, is just reporting now that sources tell Football Scoop that Bob Chesney has informed James Madison players that he will be departing for a new job. Doesn't say which job, but we know that Bob Chesney,
he's on the list.
From James Madison, has been, in conversation with UCLA and Penn State.
Yeah.
So we will see which of those jobs he's likely taking.
And Kalani's going to speak here in an hour because the conference is having the two coaches, and we're going to carry it.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we should be carrying it. I was going to fire Lloyd if he didn't get that job done. And with that in mind, I got power, Christian. Don't look at me that way, buddy. And
don't ask him to get sound anymore. Otherwise, you're next.
Yeah, you give me that donut, would you? And Kalani's going to be asked about it.
Yes.
And right off the bat, if it's Chesney that he can go, and obviously that's more regionally located, closer to Pennsylvania than we are.
Yep.
But that would put an end to it. And hopefully for BYU's sake, that they've poured some more resources into the program, because you don't win by accident. You've got to have everything. You know that old argument with the Bulls, was it the players or the organization? Mm-hmm. And I used to say yes, because it's both.
Yeah, of course.
It's everything.
Yeah.
And you need everything. And you don't always have to be best buddies, but you need everything. And BYU's going to need everything to make that next step, because Texas Tech has got everything. And Texas Tech ain't backing down. And you go out there, and you've had a great season, but if you go out there and get mauled again, that's bad. That shows you there is a massive difference between you and Texas Tech, and you can't have that.
I wouldn't blame Kalani at all if he was sick of the Big 12 conversation. As funny as it is that they've only been there for three seasons now, that this is going to be an uphill battle every year to try and get even two teams in. And if there is a team like Texas Tech above you that is willing to spend whatever it takes to be the most competitive or to be the best, I wouldn't blame Kalani if he says, why is the fourth best Big Ten team have a more realistic shot of getting to the playoff than I do? I wouldn't blame him.
If you look at it that way, I mean, Penn State has been in the playoff as recently as last year.
Yeah.
So they've got an outstanding program and have had it. I mean, Franklin has a couple losses out the door. It's mind-boggling. And that is a little bit of a downside. BYU stuck with Kalani through two losing seasons, one of which, he was mandated that he take a certain inexperienced coach who had a big name but wasn't cut out for the job.
Right.
And I think I can tell this story now. So when they announced Jeff Grimes go down to the press conference, and a certain athletic director who's retired, when the press conference,
a lot of thinly veiled hints you're throwing out.
Played
here.
in the NFL for many years, Coach Dion. He makes a beeline, comes right over to me, and gets 2 inches from my face, and says, this is Kalani's hire now.
Yeah.
A little bit of, and I had no problem with it. No problem. So you can basically, my point is, you can sort of overlook that first losing season. But then 2 years ago, they're like, oh my gosh, are they going to suck in this conference? And they sucked that year.
Yeah.
But then, wow, the last 2 years, and they have the best record in conference. Now Texas Tech has overtaken them a little bit. But yeah, what type of commitment? And another thing, Ben, that I've learned through conversations is that the basketball people were getting so much love with Pope, and he was getting contract extensions, and Kalani was waiting. It was so dramatic in the locker room. We've extended Kalani. I was like, well, that, and the reason why there was so much exuberance, because there was a possibility of that wasn't going to happen, and yet with Pope, it's like, here's another contract, and he got a little bit bugged by that. And now with Kevin Young, I mean, they opened up doors that were never even opened before, and you look at their sideline, man. If it's black or gray, there's like 20 people in black or gray on the bench. They used to be the bare minimum.
Yep.
It was like Rob Ramos was the only guy who wasn't a coach, and that was it. Now you got all these people, and again, you got to make sure that you are competing. And the problem with the competing financially is the goalposts move all the time. We were laughing when Bronco at his press conference with Tom 10, well, it's longer than that now, 11 years, I guess. We go down, maybe it's 10. We go down on a Friday, first Friday of December. It got me out of a Christmas party that I was glad that I didn't have to go to. But we went down and covered the thing. And Tom was saying, well, we can't match what Virginia was going to pay, which is like 3.5. That's nothing
It's
now.
nothing now. Yeah, right.
That's just in 10 years.
Yep.
What's it going to be in 10 more years? Is it going to be, I mean, you two, it'll be the Christian and Ben show from 6 to 10.
Well, that's going to be Christian money in 10 years. Yeah, right.
I'll be dead, but you guys are going to be laughing. Man, they're paying these guys $25 million a year.
Oh, I mean, Lane's making 13 now. By the way, Bob Chesney is headed to UCLA.
There
He
you
is
go.
not headed to Penn State, so it looks like that Penn State job remains open. And Bob Chesney was one of the big names. He's one of the dominoes to fall that was apparently also in conversations, at least with Penn State. So this continues on.
The drama heightens.
It does. It doesn't stop. We will talk to Pete Futak, national college football writer, coming up at 11. And, of course, we'll carry the Big 12 press conference, including Kalani Sitake, coming up at 11:30. PK, thanks for hanging out.
Is that it? You wanted me for one segment?
Well, you can hang as long as you want.
Well,
but we
Christian
just
was talking about 3 hours.
Yeah, you're going to hang out for the first
Well,
hour.
I think
of
he wanted me to,
Scotty.
he wanted me to get him lunch.
Okay, yeah. Get him sound and get him some lunch.
Yeah, like I'm the guy's servant. I did. Before we go, I got to tell one story that I went down to St. George for the weekend. I told this earlier this morning, and we're out golfing, and these two guys, guy asked me, "Are you retired?" I said, "No, still going strong, still love the gig." And well, what do you do? And he's with his son who's in his 30s, and I tell him, and they look at me. I said, "Yeah, I have a radio show. I work for a radio show." And the son, who's in his 30s, probably, maybe 40, he looks at me. "Oh, are you a producer?" No, I'm not. I'm on air. Ha, ha, ha. And I always downplay it, what I do. And my wife, "Have you ever heard of DJ and PK?"
Oh.
And the dad, who was older than me, is retired from OC Tanner. "Oh, yeah. I've heard it. I know who you are now." He says to me, "But you don't talk a lot out here." Kind of the way I am. But in here, I'm a loudmouth blowhard.
You charge for the word when you're out on the street. Yeah.
Well,
you can't give it away for free.
I like to there's a lot of things I could say to that, but why don't we just go to break?
Top 3 stories. KSL Sports coming up next. PK, thank you so much.
Okay.
We'll be back. Stick around, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's time to break down the biggest stories of the day. This is the top 3 stories of the day on KSLSports.com. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake out today. He'll be back with us coming up on Wednesday. But it is time for the top 3 stories at KSL Sports, brought to you by J. Brooks Jewelers. J. Brooks, cherish your loved ones with J. Brooks Jewelers. Explore their expertly crafted engagement rings made from the finest materials. 2 locations up and down the Wasatch Front. Go check out our friends at J. Brooks Jewelers. All right, Christian, busy busy weekend since Thanksgiving. I can't believe we haven't talked since then, though you were on the air over the weekend. Where are we starting?
Number 1, BYU and Utah both win over the weekend. BYU gets win number 11, and that's win number 10 for the Utes.
BYU beating Central Florida, obviously the big story because it did. I mean, I guess that game was already wrapped up, or the conference championship game was already wrapped up before BYU even played, but came out a little bit flat. And if I'm being honest with you, and again, I hate to diminish the big story here for BYU, so I'm not going to. The big story is BYU is going to the Big 12 championship game, and that's truly remarkable considering the drama they had in the offseason, losing a very good quarterback in Jake Retzlaff, having to replace him with a true freshman who joined the team late, and to turn in the consistent season, the dominant season that they had is extraordinarily impressive. And it's one of the reasons why I really don't like the college football playoff, and I'm not just saying that to sound controversial. It belittles BYU having a top 11 ranked team going 11-1 and not really all that dangerous. I mean, how many close games was BYU in the fourth quarter? Utah? I mean, not many. A couple here and there, but BYU really was dominant from the opening game of the season to the close. They dominated most teams on their schedule. And the only thing we can talk about is what's next for BYU. Can they continue to win the Big 12 title game? And I'm a fan of continuing to play the hand that you're dealt, and that your expectations should change as you change them for yourself, as you move your own goalposts. That's okay, especially when you're playing well. But I hate that we can't savor what BYU has done this year, because this has been so far beyond what any reasonable person could have expected. This is what they should have been with Jake Retzlaff, but they didn't have him, and the fact that they still turned this in is a real credit to A-Rod, to Kalani Sitake, and to Bear Bachmeier.
Like 7-8 months ago, the question was, will the Cougars even be bowl eligible?
Yeah, can they win 6 games?
Like that's how ridiculous this turnaround has been, and we know the team was so good. They were returning 14 starters, I believe, from a 10-win team last year, so the expectations changed throughout the season, and you're right. Like, it does. You don't want to overshadow one of the great BYU football seasons of all time just because they don't potentially make the college football playoff.
Yeah, there's a real chance this is a top 5 BYU football season of all time. And I know they've had national championship seasons. They went to the Cotton Bowl. They've had great years, but they've been a top 15 team for over a month now. You've suffered one loss, and it was to the number, 4 overall team in the country right now, number 5 in Texas Tech. And you get a chance to rematch with them coming up this weekend in the Big 12 title game. Our Big 12 championship game coverage is brought to you by JCW's, the Burger Boys. Quality and a lot of it. Go make sure you check out our friends at JCW's. But it's a great season. Tip of the cap to BYU. I don't think anybody was actually... What's amazing about this team is, even with a true freshman quarterback, they go down 14-0 against Central Florida. Did anyone doubt BYU was going to come back and win that game exactly the way they did, that they were going to force turnovers, they were going to make a big special teams play, they were going to eventually run the ball down Central Florida's throats? And that's what they did. I mean, they have such a strong identity, which is what has made them such a good program. And so it's so easy to remedy what their issues are. When you lose a quarterback like Jake Retzlaff, you, A, have a great team around him to fix it, and then B, somebody who can step up and fill that role as well without needing to be a superstar. It doesn't need to come out and be Ty Detmer, which, I know Jake has argued that that's how BYU is going to get back into being relevant. They're showing that that's not the case. They can be a full program on both sides of the ball, and they don't necessarily need superstar quarterbacks, and that's not to dismiss that Bear Bachmeier might be on that path.
Yeah, and I said this during the postgame show, too, going back to this game against Central Florida. Like, even though they went down 14-0, they ended up scoring 31 unanswered. It was 17-14 at halftime. And at that point, even at halftime, they're only up by 3. And I was like, oh, it's over.
This game's over.
It's over. Just the way that they had completely shut down Central Florida after those 2 early scores. And then they just simply woke up and remembered that they were a much better football team.
Now, they can't start slow against Texas Tech. And this has been an issue for BYU on, weirdly, both the football field and the hardwood. The basketball team is notoriously starting horrendously this year. They did it over the weekend. They did it against UConn early in the year. They have to start quicker, but more importantly, the football team has to start quick. They cannot play from behind against Texas Tech and let that excellent defense start to tee off on Bear Bachmeier, because that's what happened last time these two teams played. And BYU was down, not 29-0, but 26-0? before BYU got on the board, I think. So you can't do that. You've got to come out and you've got to strike quick. So they've got to find a way to play faster, get on the board quicker, take over the game quicker. And then, of course, the other big game of the weekend, we'll talk about this more coming up in the next segment. Utah does beat Kansas 31-21. Speaking of another slow start, I mean, this actually felt like a game I thought Utah was going to lose. And what's been very impressive, because he hasn't had to do it yet, and that doesn't mean a player can't do it, but when you haven't seen it, you need to see them prove it. Devin Dampier, back-to-back fourth-quarter comebacks for Utah, and scoring 21 points, making big throws, making great reads, showing off the physical tools that he does have, and this time not with a big run like he did a week ago. This one with the fake and the big throw to Sim down the sideline was enough where I think I had been teetering on who would you actually rather have as your starting quarterback next year, Devin Dampier or Bird Ficklin. Ideally, you can bring them both back, and I wouldn't rule it out. But I think if you end up with Devin Dampier as your quarterback next year, you should be very happy because he has shown that he can really do it in the biggest moments. You would like to see it more consistently, but if he can do this throughout the year next year, Utah's going to be very good again and is going to compete for a Big 12 title game.
Allegedly. And they keep telling us that he's not even healthy, so
yeah, exactly
potentially
right.
The ceiling is even higher, so we will see how true that is, I guess.
Utah, 10 wins, 10-2, another very good year for Coach Kyle Whittingham. Not one of the great Utah seasons of all time, which I think is a testament to how great of a program that Whit has built, that they win 10 games in the Big 12, and there's a little bit of a ho-hum approach to it, like, well, could have been better. That's a sign of a really good program, and that's what Utah has. All right, what's next?
Number 2, even after some really big wins, the big story of the weekend for BYU football, all of a sudden everybody's chattering about Kalani Sitake potentially leaving the program for Penn State.
That certainly has been the big story for, you kind of started to hear whispers about it. What was it, Saturday? Must have started Friday a little bit. Yesterday it really started to pick up steam, and it kind of seemed like, I don't know, who's talking about it? Is it actually believable? Then late last night, it totally caught on, and it felt like a firestorm. And first thing I did this morning when I got up was Twitter search Kalani Sitake's name to see if there'd been any breaking news there or what the latest rumors were. And there seemed to be some real belief that this is the direction Penn State is headed. This is the guy that they want, Kalani Sitake, and that Kalani is sharing some mutual interest in it. Now, again, this is all internet fodder, but the other big name tied to this Penn State job was Bob Chesney from James Madison. And this morning, Bob Chesney announced, or it's being announced, that he has taken the UCLA opening and took that job and has told his players that he's leaving. So that leaves Penn State open. It's a great job. Kalani Sitake is a very good coach. I think Kalani Sitake would make a lot of sense at Penn State. You know, one of the things that we talked about with PK in the last segment was the Lavelle Edwards, the spirit of Lavelle Edwards being so ingrained in Kalani and kind of being cut from the same cloth and learning from that. Joe Paterno has some of that. Now, I'm not trying to blend the legacy of Joe Paterno and Lavelle Edwards because obviously it's been drastically different. We have a totally different perspective on Joe Paterno then, but Joe Pa and Lavelle were peers. They were at the same school and winning at a high level for a very long time. And showed that they could win for a long time. So while that is built in for the love of BYU and fans have that ingrained, so does Penn State. And I'm sure everybody who coaches at the highest level sees that at Penn State and understands that about Penn State. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kalani saw some of his history existing at Penn State as well and thinking that he could have a chance to continue to win there. And again, I think one of the strange things that I've noticed, and Christian, correct me if you think I'm wrong, Kalani's a great hire, not just because of what he's done at BYU, but he's youngish. He's 50, so he's not, looking at a 2 or 3 year runway before he's hanging it up or bouncing for a different job. I mean, I think there's a real chance Kalani has 8 to 10 years in front of him if he has success, which is what I think they liked about James Franklin when they hired him. I think conceptually he would bring a quarterback with him in Bear Bachmeier, who's going into just his sophomore season, so you're getting 2 birds with 1 stone, and then you probably get A-Rod, obviously, as well, because if Kalani was leaving for a pay raise, A-Rod would have to get one as well. I don't think you would get Jay Hill. I would assume he would be the head coach at BYU if this were to transpire. But that would be really attractive to me if I was an athletic director or president of a school trying to hire somebody new, that you could potentially get a near ready-made product when you bring in Kalani with a lot of solutions coming with him.
Yeah, and where there's smoke, there's at least a little bit of fire. So we'll see how this ends up, if it just ends up as more of a leverage play for Kalani or if it really is truly something. But I think you're spot on. There's a reason why it makes sense. And Kalani has done so good at BYU, and not only through independence and navigating that, but really turning them into one of the premier programs in the Big 12 Conference in just their first 2 seasons there, or I guess 3 seasons now. But he's a slam dunk hire, and you point out everything correctly. Like, yeah, he has a coordinator that would be ready-made and a quarterback, and everything lines up, so it could be big.
The other thing I would note when it comes to Bob Chesney taking the UCLA job, it makes me think that Penn State was probably willing to wait for somebody. You know, they were willing to choose somebody else, or they preferred somebody else, because there's no question, if you're offered the Penn State job and you offered the UCLA job, you take Penn State. Penn State's 1,000 times better job. It's in the same conference, and it's a better job in the same conference with a richer history and less room to have to grow. It's fascinating. This is a difficult time for BYU fans. I really am borderline frustrated for them that having this type of year, having this type of success, it's all undercut by A, can you actually win the Big 12 title to get to the college football playoff and not just celebrating that you're there, and then B, that it might cost you your head coach, when I think maybe the rumors or at least the kind of growing sentiment had been, well, maybe you're going to lose Jay Hill at some point because Jay Hill's done such a good job with that defense.
It's the week of the Big 12 championship game, the Monday of. We have a press conference in 40 minutes to talk about this, yet the biggest story is that Kalani Sitake may be leaving.
And it's bad for fan bases, and it's great for college athletics. It's great for college. It's great for college media. It's great for the news. It's the story that everybody likes to read about because it's not directing your team or it's not impacting your team directly, so you get to speculate about it. All right, what's number 3?
Number 3, in some Sunday matinee action, the Jazz were crushed by the Houston Rockets yesterday.
Crushed could be used in a couple of ways. Yes, they were crushed on the court, 129-101. I will tell you, I was in the locker room after the game, and it was weird. Will Hardy was, I thought, in a different mood after the game than usual. We've seen the Jazz lose by 28 points to good teams. This is not particularly unusual. And there were parts of the game that were different and stood out. Certainly Keontae George, 0 of 6 and 8 turnovers, going scoreless for the first time since his rookie year, was bizarre. He only played 19 minutes. He'd been listed as questionable with an illness. I'm honestly pretty okay chalking it up to him just having a bad game and not feeling well and expecting him to bounce back as soon as tonight when they take on the Rockets again. But I thought Will took a while to get out of the locker room. Locker room was in a very weird mood after the game. There was very real frustration. And again, there's frustration after losses, but I thought this was a different type of frustration. So I'm really fascinated to see how they bounce back tonight. I'm excited to see how they play because I don't want to make something out of nothing if that was just a weird one-off. And look, Sunday 3 p.m. games or Sunday 1 p.m. games, are weird. It's a different time of day. Your pregame preparation, I should say, is totally different than what you usually do. And that stuff throws you off. Team couldn't hold on to the ball, which was weird. It was flying all over the court. Both teams had a bunch of turnovers in the first half. It could be as simple as that. And maybe they'll just bounce back tonight and everything will be fine. Or maybe they just need to go on the road for a little while. They've been home for a long time. Maybe they need to shake that up after the holiday. But it felt different to me than most losses, which is weird because this team has done basically nothing but lose for 4 straight seasons now. For it to feel that downtrodden it's stuck out to me.
Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe they're tired of losing. And it's interesting kind of comparing to the hockey team. We have seen and heard some audio like, you know, you want some of those players to be frustrated with losing. You want them to be winners and have that winning mentality. So maybe that switch is starting to flip.
You would hope so. And I almost would counter that by saying, I wonder if they thought they would be better than they are and they're not. And that's what the realization was that they set in that, when push comes to shove, you can have a good practice Saturday or whatever they felt like happened and still just get absolutely thumped by better teams. I don't know. Excited to watch tonight. Jazz taking on this same Houston Rockets team tonight. All right, when we come back, we'll talk more about Utah's win over Kansas. Pete Futak's going to join us coming up at 11 o'clock, talking about the latest in the National College Football landscape, including Kalani Sitake, Penn State, and where BYU sits with the College Football Playoff Committee. And then coming up at 11:30, we'll let you hear from Kalani Sitake getting ready for the Big 12 championship game coming up on Saturday at 10 a.m. Stick around. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
What's that?
But whether it's the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, or Aggies, these guys have got you covered.
Time to eat, fellas.
You're locked on to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
1, 2, 3, move it.
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Win big this Wednesday on the KSL Sports Zone with Win Ticket Wednesday. This week, it's them before you. This week, it's win them before you can buy them. Tickets at the Aerofest 2026, featuring Styx and Chicago at the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater, August 30th. Win them before you can buy them is not the band name. You can win them before you can buy them. To go see Styx in Chicago at the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater, part of Aerofest 2026. Coming up on August 30th. Tickets are on sale this Friday at 10 a.m. and livenation.com. Listen to the KSL Sports Zone all day Wednesday for your chance to win. Again, tickets to go see Styx in Chicago. You can win them before you can buy them. Coming up on Friday on Win Ticket Wednesday, if that's not confusing. All right, we got to get to Pete Futak coming up in the next segment. But Utah gets the nice win, 31-21 over Kansas. It is funny that Witt had the complaint about the offense because traditionally Utah has to win this game 24-21, right? They can't move the ball through the air. They've got to grind something out on the ground. They do have to get the 97-yard pick six. Like, that is very Utah-esque. But to be able to score 21 points in a fourth quarter is not something we have historically seen Utah do. We've talked about the boa constrictor aspect of Utah historically. BYU is now doing it as well. You build a lead, you run the ball, you kill the clock, and you just slowly strangle the life out of your opponent. Utah was the one getting strangled and found a way to fight back, and they've done that in back-to-back weeks now. It's just a different era that we're seeing, and I think it's promising that Utah's offense can finally do this. Pete Futak's going to join us coming up next. We'll talk about the latest with the college football playoff, what he expects from BYU and Texas Tech this weekend, and what he has heard about the Penn State opening and Kalani Sitake. Stick around. More coming up next. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.